So let us all start, as we had done last week. If I can ask all of you to just now close your eyes and let your body just now relax. Allow your feet to grip the floor. Allow your arms and your hands to just loosen. You can keep as hard as possible and erect and straight back. Head motionless. And at this point, while thinking of the lotus eyes of Lord Shri Krishna, please respond in union the Pranav Omkar. "10,000 years ago, Lord Krishna, he had decided to relieve the burden of the earth. There was a time where on earth many souls had descended, and during this moment, crisis emerged, where vices like selfishness, motivated love, and jealousy started to creep into human society. Previous to this, king after king, by example, showed the power of love. But this love starts to become distorted. And therefore, in the great dynasty of the Kurus, a king emerged by the name of Dushyant. Dushyant fell in love with a queen of a forest, and her name was Shakuntala. Shakuntala said to Maharaj Dushyant that I can marry you only on one condition. That condition is you ask my father for my hand. Dushyant said that in matters of marriage, women have ultimate freedom to choose whoever they wish to give their hearts to. Dushyant Maharaj disagreed. He said to Shakuntala, you are able enough. God has given you intelligence. God has given you your own independence to decide who you would like to marry? Shakuntala said, I was born in the forest, but I am the daughter of a Maharishi, and therefore it is important that I abide by righteousness. Dushyant, infatuated by Shakuntala's voice, her form and her body, for the first time on earth, he transgressed the laws of morality. And he said to Shakuntala, as the king and the emperor of earth, I give you complete freedom to decide whether or not you would like to marry me without asking your parents. Being a noble citizen, she accepted on one condition, that her son will be the next emperor in line to Dushyant. Dushyant said, fine, as you wish. Dushyant Maharaj, he spent months and weeks with Shakuntala. And then the time came where he had to now leave and go back to Hastinapur. Many, many years went by. At this point, Shakuntala, she gave birth to a beautiful boy. The boy became as powerful as Maharaj Dushyant. He was clearly qualified to be the next emperor. Shakuntala decided this is the right time to take this boy back to her father's home, so that Dushyant can fulfill the promise he made to me for my son to be the next emperor. When Shakuntala arrived at the city of Hastinapur, Dushyant ignored her. The emperor of the universe said to Shakuntala, who are you? I've never seen you in my life. Shakuntala was shocked. You are the same person who pressurized me to transgress human values and morality, driven by your so-called love for me. And you had also given a vow and you pledged that my son will be the next emperor. How can you today reject me? Then Dushyant said, this is not how you speak to the king of earth. And Shakuntala began to debate with Dushyant about the values of being truthful, about the values of being honorable, and most importantly, the values of what it means to be human. And then Dushyant said, no matter what you justify, I cannot accept any child to be the next emperor of earth. At that point, the celestials and the devatas all appeared in the skies, and they reminded Dushyant that this boy is indeed your son. Dushyant then said to Shakuntala and the celestials, I knew he was my son. I knew who you were. But because we had got married in isolation of the community and society and our parents, nobody would believe that you are my wife. And therefore, to set an example, I had to reject you at sight. And then Dushyant, he embraced this boy of his, and in the boy's embrace, he stole all of Dushyant's virtues and his power. And this boy became known as Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj is the seed of what happened in the Mahabharata. Bharat Maharaj, by his very example, showed how it is by qualification only that one can attain superior positions of responsibilities. And that qualification has to be supported by basic human values. And therefore Bharat Maharaj became world famous as a child. And many generations later appeared King Kuru. King Kuru, he had performed so much tapasya in the land of India that the area where he had performed austerities became known as Kurukshetra. Some generations after Maharaj Kuru was the great king called Maharaj Pratip. And Maharaj Pratip, he was a celestial living on earth. And Mother Ganga herself became attracted to Maharaj Pratip. And once, while Maharaj Pratip was engaged in chanting, doing japa on the banks of the Ganga, Mother Ganga arose from her riverbed and she came and sat on Maharaj Pratip's right lap. And she asked Maharaj Pratip, because you are a sovereign and a celestial on earth, I wish to marry you. Maharaj Pratip looked at Ganga and said, the right lap, the right side is for my daughter and daughter-in-law. Therefore, you cannot marry me. Instead, you can marry my son, whose name is Maharaj Shantanu. Maharaj Shantanu. Maharaj Pratip explained to Maharaj Shantanu that I have found an eligible wife for you, Ganga. And she has 3 conditions. The first condition is, you will never ask about her origin. The second condition is, you will never question her actions. And the third condition is, because Ganga is always pure, if you ever feel that Mother Ganga is doing a sinful activity, you would never correct her. On these 3 conditions, Maharaj Shantanu married Ganga. And from that point onwards, very, very small seeds of ambition and motivations crept in to the dynasty of the Bharatas. Shantanu was now obliged to follow certain rules, regulations, and vows that were contrary to law, contrary to ethics, contrary to morals. All of you know the story that after drowning 7 of Maharaj Shantanu's babies, he stopped her at the 8th. And the child was then given back to Maharaj Shantanu after receiving education from the priest of the celestials himself, Brihaspati. This boy's name was Devvrat. And Devvrat returned to Maharaj Shantanu after education to become the next king of Bharat. However, after Mother Ganga returned back to her abode, the holy sacred rivers, Maharaj Shantanu then fell in love with Satyavati. The story is love story is always very long. It's an extra long love story. We'll do a shortcut. He fell in love. And when he fell in love, the practice of making vows, pledges, oaths, which are not aligned with scriptural injunctions, started to become a popular fashion. And then, when he fell in love with Satyavati, all of you know, her father set his own conditions. You can marry Satyavati as long as, exactly, as long as her child becomes the king in your dynasty. Maharaj Shantanu felt terrible to take away that natural next step for Devvrat, because Devvrat was by qualification ready to become the heir apparent, the Yuvraj, and take on the kingdom of Bharat. So he wasn't able to accept this request from Satyavati's father. But Bhishma, he then saw how the father Shantanu was so upset. He was so troubled because he was unable to marry Satyavati because of the request of Satyavati's father. Bhishma took upon himself to eradicate the misery of his father by going and agreeing that he would not take the Simhasan. He would not accept to be crowned the Yuvraj, the heir apparent, and will not become the next king. And then Satyavati's father, who was a very clever to-be father-in-law, he then asked a few more questions. And he said, well, what happens if you later on decide, or your children decide, because you're older, you naturally will be older, to any issue from Satyavati, any child of Satyavati's. To avoid that, what would you do? If you get married and your own children say that we are the oldest in the family, and therefore the next emperor should be us, Bhishma said, I will not marry. I will remain brahmacharya. And he took this vow, and because this vow destroyed his natural future of having progeny and leaving a legacy on this planet, he was named Bhishma, one who has taken the most difficult vow, the ultimate sacrifice. In the story of Dushyant, in the story of Bharat, in the story of Pradeep, in the story of Shantanu, and in the story of Bhishma, you will see throughout all of these generations very small traits of deviations creeping in. And this became magnified in the following generations after. This is the introduction to session 2. Welcome all once again for Mahabharata As It Was, based upon these very subtle deviations in the dynasty of the Bharatas. You will now see how the seeds become into trees and how the trees start bearing fruits, ultimately leading to the Mahabharata in Kurukshetra. So for today, we are going to be doing a lot of participation with each and every one of you. I will just show you very quickly some of the main individuals in the dynasty of the Bharatas, beginning with Chandra, which is why the dynasty is also called the Chandra Vamsh. And you can see there are some more people also mentioned, but I've left them out just to keep the list a bit smaller. This is a very important family genealogy to understand, because you will see on how very slowly digressions and deviations occurred, even at the faintest of very small deviations from religious principles, from Dharmic scriptures. And why is this important? Because ultimately, these individuals were running the planet. And if they deviate, then that is the example that is set for all else to follow. The way that we will now be conducting session 2, session 3, and session 4 is that I have chosen some key events. There are so many episodes, so many events in the Mahabharata text. I've taken some key ones. And what I have done is I've translated summary of the key events that I feel will be nice to discuss with each of you. And they're not so long, like this one you can see is this much, the next one is this much. So I'm trying to keep them as short as possible, so we can get some opinions, we can get some debate, some questions going amongst ourselves. And of course, all of you will know the story is very lengthy between Bhishma and Kunti. You can watch that on serial or read in your own time. But Chitrangada, Vechitya Virya, then Dhritarashtra, how Vyas came and they performed Niyoga, by which Pandu appeared, Vidur appeared, and of course Dhritarashtra appeared. All of these things I think most of you know, or you can read in your own time. I'm going to jump straight on to Kunti and Karna. So, what you could do is you can both have a look at what I'm presenting on the screen, and also you can naturally just hear as well and take in as much as you can. And then I would ask for some comments and some questions, and let's see what type of debate and concerns we have on this particular episode of Kunti and Karna. Okay? And then we will break in around about an hour's time. So, Kunti and Karna, what's a very interesting pastime in the Mahabharata. A very sad ending, possibly and perhaps a situation which created a lot of trouble for both Vasusena and Kunti. How did he get the name Vasusena? Pritha is the birth name of Kunti, and she was the sister of Lord Krishna's father, Vasudeva. His brother, Kunti Bhoj, was quite aged, and he had promised to give his first child to him for adoption. Pritha was born. Once upon a time, Lord Shiva, he appeared on this earth as Durvasa Muni. And Durvasa Muni, he was in particular the expansion of Lord Shiva's anger. To please a Brahmin like Durvasa was a big challenge for anyone. Durvasa decided to spend Chaturmasya, the 4 months of the rainy season, at the home and the palace of Kunti Bhoj. Maharaj Kunti Bhoj, he said, I don't think I'll be able to serve Durvasa Muni without any offense, so I will delegate hospitality to Pritha, and Pritha will serve Durvasa. So for 4 months, she would prepare his food, she would prepare all of his articles for worship, bring him ink and paper for him to do his notes and study, bring him books to read, do his Sandhya Vandanam, his prayers, see guests, provide him water for his bathing and other requirements. And in this way, Durvasa Rishi, without ever complaining about Pritha, he became exceedingly pleased with her service. Durvasa Muni then closed his eyes, and in his meditation, he saw that Pritha in the future would have issues in trying to conceive children. So as a blessing, Durvasa Rishi decided to teach Kunti a very powerful mantra. This mantra, having chanted, will induce any celestial, any devata to immediately appear, on the condition that the appearance will bear fruit in the form of a child. So Maharishi Durvasa, he taught Kunti the rules and regulations for chanting the mantra and warned her to be very careful when utilizing this mantra. She was very young. Once at the age of 13. Very young, huh? Some of you may not know. Kunti Pritha was 13 years old. At the age of 13, she became curious. There's a mantra I've been taught, can't really say it, let me test it out. And in her mind, she invoked Surya through this mantra. Surya Dev immediately appeared, and these are his actual words. He said, Kim Karavani Te? What can I do for you, Pritha? She replied, Jigyasya Avahanam. Avahanam. I've invoked you only out of curiosity. I wanted to check the efficacy of the mantra that Maharishi Durvasa gave me. She said, I bow my head to you for this fault, asking for your forgiveness. Etasmin aparadhe tvam shirasaham prasadaye. She accepted this to be an aparad, a mistake, and she asked for forgiveness. And she said, a woman, even if guilty, always deserves protection. Surya then said, yes, I agree, but amogham darshanam mahyam. My darshan is amogha. My darshan is very special. And it must bear fruit. There has to be a result, having seen me. And then Kunti was very fearful in carrying a child at the age of 13. And therefore, Surya, he began to try to dissipate all of her fears. He tried to convince her why everything will be fine. In fact, he also said to Kunti that after receiving a child born from my effulgence, in case you wanted to know the detail, Surya said, from my effulgence you will receive a child. Nevertheless, you will always remain a kanya, a virgin. Now, I would just like to point out that while there are many cultures and there are many ways of living, there's also a culture and a way of living in the Vedic scriptures. So, because we should promote inclusion and diversity, I want to also take the opportunity to explain to you why Kanya is a very important concept in the Vedic culture. It does not have to be important in the lives of others, but it's important in those that follow the Vedic culture. Kanyala pitrabhya patilokam gameyam apadiksham ayashta. The scripture says that for the Vivaha Sanskar, the bride has to be a virgin. She has to be a Kanya. And Kanyabhya pitrabhya patilokam. And only such a person is entitled to perform the Brahma Vivaha. The Brahma Vivaha is a very specific ceremony where the purest of the pure celestials all descend and they join the forthcoming bride and groom. Which is why, while other cultures, it's perfectly fine to be as you are, in the Vedic culture, there's no concept of boyfriend and girlfriend. And there are other cultures where the concept is perfectly fine. But because the concepts in the Vedic culture may not be so much well known, it's very important to equally share the values of the Vedic culture. Otherwise, it's unfair. You only get the values of the non-Vedic cultures, and the scales are imbalanced. So therefore, I'm sharing this. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm simply providing the culture of the Mahabharata era that millions of people follow and many billions don't follow. But it's nice to hear about various cultures. So the concept of Kanya enters the Vivaha Sanskar, and in the Vivaha Sanskar, the Vedic marriage ceremony, all of the celestials that are worshipped, they join the bride and groom. And enjoying the bride and groom become the manifestation of Lakshmi and Narayan. The concept of God is manifested in every bride and groom. But to be an expansion of God, there is a level of purity that is assumed. And the level of purity for the bride is to be a kanya. Which is why the Rigveda explains that when a baby girl is born, at that very point, it explains that a devata in the form of Somo Dadad Gandharvaya is the hymn from the Rigveda. Okay? The first ever revelation from Krishna's flute. Much before Bhagavad Gita, much before Srimad Bhagavatam, much before Mahabharata. Somo Dadat Gandharvaya. Lord Shiva, on the birth of every female, he is her guardian angel. And Lord Shiva looks after every single female on the planet. Somo Dadat Gandharvaya. The Rigveda then says that when the female attains puberty, then Lord Shiva hands the female, baby child, to Lord Gandharva. Somo Dadat Gandharvaya. And Gandharva, during adolescence, provides the female with her beauty, with her knowledge, with her smartness, her intelligence, and everything else. And then Gandharva Dadat Agniye. Then Gandharva, he hands the female to Agni. And Agni, by whom we cook our food and we keep ourselves warm, especially in this country. Agni then, his duty is to keep the female pure, untouched, for the right person to whom she is destined to be married to. Agni, he then looks after the female day and night continuously. And for the celestials to offer their duties, purity is very important. It's the only requirement to receive the blessings and the protection of the celestials. And this is, ladies and gentlemen, the only reason. There is no other reason. Any other reason is because they don't know the real reason. Okay? The only reason why the fire is lit in the wedding ceremony is because of this. It's not because of worship. It's not because it's holy. It's not because it's puja time. None of that. Because the female is in the charge of Agni. You understand? Then, Somo Dadat Gandharvaya, Gandharvo Dadat Agnaye, Rayinscha Putramscha. For passing on the female to the bridegroom, Agni manifests. And then Agni passes on the Kanya to the hands of the bridegroom. That is the only reason why Agni is invoked in the wedding ceremony. So this can go on, this competition can go on for a very long time. But if you wanted to understand why it's important for the concept of Kanya to be fully understood in the Mahabharata era, Kunti had a concern. How will I ever marry? How will I ever be accepted in a society where at that time the majority of people were following the Vedic culture? Surya said, after from my effulgence you receive my child, you will still remain a Kanya. This is a very important point to note, because later on, Draupadi will ask the same question about how she can maintain being a Kanya, despite marrying 5 different individuals. This background is important for everyone to know. Many years ago, this would be common knowledge in India, but nowadays, diversity and inclusion, therefore it is not so understood so well. But it's something to respect, at least from the perspective of another culture. Then Kunti, as she has to, she permitted Surya to then, from his effulgence, manifest a baby. And as all of you know, this baby was clad in natural armor and gold earrings. And when Kunti saw the earrings of this baby, she noticed, and therefore she called him Karna, which means ears in Sanskrit, because of the beauty of his ears being enhanced through the gold earrings of Surya. As soon as Surya placed in the hands of Kundi, or Pritha, the manifestation of his effulgence, she had double feelings. She was both very happy and at the same time extremely fearful. What will my father and relatives and my friends say about this? And therefore she decided that at the age of 13, as we explained earlier, in her mind, the best thing was to abandon the baby. So she created a casket. She wrote on top of the casket the name Karna, and she put in the casket the baby and filled it with gems. So hopefully whoever finds the baby will also be very rich. And then she placed the casket in the beautiful river Yamuna. And the casket flowed in Yamuna, and it was received at the end of the Yamuna by someone whose name was Adirat. Adirat. And Adirat, he was from the family of Sutas. Okay? These families are commissioned to be the charioteers in the lineage of the Kuru Vamsh. There are some exceptions to this tribe. For example, Sanjay, who spoke the Bhagavad Gita to Dhritarashtra, he was also part of the same tribe. But he became a disciple of Krishna Dvaipayan Vyas. And therefore, as his disciple, he became elevated, whereas Adira remained a charioteer. His wife's name was Radha, and they were both so pleased to be given the benediction from God in the form of finding this baby. Because this baby came with lots of gems and wealth, they named him Vasu Sena, because of being covered in rubies and gems while he was placed in the casket. Karna grew up, and very easily he was able to learn the Dhanurved. He had a natural ability to learning arms. He had a military disposition, and also there was two traits which are very uncommon with Karna. He had an affiliation to Surya. Anyone here worship Surya? You raise your hands. Oh, beautiful. Very nice. I also, every day. You also worship Surya? That's very good. And every day Karna had a natural affiliation to worshipping Surya, and he would pray to him until the sun rays scorched his back. He would pray to him that long. And while he would pray to him, all of you know, if anyone came to him at that time and asked for something, he would give. And you all know how this became a tragic incident in his life many years later. So this is a story of Kunti and Karna. Are there any comments or questions or challenges that you would like to share with regards to Kunti and Karna? Please, you can raise your hands and you can share with us if you have any questions on this particular story. Or any comments, please.
The story of Karna's birth and being put in the casket, it's very similar to the story of Moses as well. However, with Moses, he was a prince of Egypt, and it's the opposite with Karna, because he was known as the son of a Shudra.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Anything about Moses? Want to share? Nothing? Okay. He's an expert in biblical stuff at the moment. Hinduism is too simple for him. Thank you so much. That's a very good parallel. No doubt the Iliad and the Odyssey and other such epics have been influenced a lot by the Mahabharata, as we read in session 1, didn't we? That there will be no book which will not be dependent on the Mahabharata. Somebody else, would you like to go first then?
Yeah, just clarifying the timing, because Kunti was the sister of Vasudha. How does the story of Krishna align with the story of Kunti?
Brilliant. That's a good question. In fact, I had the same question this morning, so I looked in the book actually to understand. So the birth of Kanna, he was actually the eldest out of everyone. He was older to even Duryodhan. He was older to Krishna and Balaram and all the Kauravas and the Pandavas. So he was actually the eldest out of everybody.
That also makes Krishna and Karna cousin.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And Krishna, he tried to take advantage of this point later on. I think in session, maybe next week we'll cover that, where Krishna approached Kanna and he said to him, "Hey, we're brothers. Let's talk. Let's talk about what's been going on in life." And Kanna wasn't so interested. Yeah. Thank you for the question. Yes.
When did Kunti find out later on in life that her son was coming?
Yeah. So we're going to read in this session where at the Pratispadha, the tournament, at the tournament, Kunti recognizes Kanna. And there's a particular word which I've included in one of the slides soon, where she says, "I saw my sons about to enter a duel, and yet I could do nothing." She was so perplexed, so confused at that point. We're going to come to that. Very good question. Yes, please.
Just a quick one. You mentioned about Bhakti. You mentioned there's a challenge there. What is the challenge? It seems pretty straightforward. So let's make it Wednesday.
In this story?
Yeah, like you said, in wedding ceremonies and sort of, what's the debate? What are the reasons?
Yeah, it's a good question, actually. So what happens is you're going to see in the Mahabharata one of the greatest challenges that are quite prominent is the challenge, and Krishna actually speaks of it in the Gita. There's a verse where he says, "Kama esha, krodha esha, rajo gun samudbhava." He basically says, either out of anger or out of lust, activities manifest, which then create awkward consequences. So in this particular situation, Kunti was trying to avoid creating an awkward consequence by saying to Surya, "No, I've called upon you, I've chanted to him, but I don't want to be in a situation that later on regret by having a child outside of marriage." Yeah, that was the consequence that she had. So never test mantras. You never know what might land in your lap, literally. There was another hand? Yes. What is your question?
Kunti was allowed to be a Kanya after giving birth to Karna. Why did she still abandon him?
So it's a very good question. So Kanya's, the question was that if Kunti was allowed to be a Kanya, even after receiving Karna, why did she abandon him? So because she was, how old are you? 12. She was 1 year older than you. And Kunti, she became very scared. She became very frightened in raising a child. She felt that it would have been very difficult for others. Her parents may have believed her. Her friends may have believed her. But for general society, to believe that this is actually her child would have been very challenging for her. That's why she became very fearful, and she felt Tyagat Shanti Ananta, that because by giving up things, one attains everlasting peace. Try it out when you have your own problems. If you want everlasting peace. She felt best thing is to do, give up the baby and pray for the baby. That's why she gave it up. So this was her personal way to deal in this situation. Yes.
If Garna was born with armor and like gold earrings, because I know in the history why he was born with armor. Where did that armor go when he was like on the battlefield and obviously he was like possible on the battlefield? Where did that armor go? Like where did he still die if he was born with that armor?
Yeah, sure. So is the question, because Karna was born with natural armor,
Yeah.
which made him invincible,
Yeah.
where did the armor go after entering the battle of Kurukshetra?
Yeah, because like how did he still die if he was born with this natural?
Yeah, very good question. So we're going to read in session, I think next week, we're going to read next week. Sorry, I keep pushing, it's not an excuse, is it? Just trying to work out the timings in my head. In session 3, we're going to read how Arjun, in the form of his father, tricked Karna to give up his natural coat of armor, by which Arjun can succeed. You're going to read, for those Arjun fans, you're not going to like me. You're going to read some comments that he made that's going to make you change your impression about Arjun, perhaps. So this is one of the things that Arjun is criticized for cheating Karna from his armor. And I think in the next few minutes we're going to read what Yudhishthir had to say when he viewed Karna and Arjun together. Who do you think Yudhishthir felt was superior? You're going to read that in a few moments as well. Is that okay for the answer? Yes?
Why
But-
didn't Kunti tell the Pandavas that they had another brother?
Yeah, it's a good question. So why did Kunti not tell the Pandavas that they had another brother? It's a very good question. So when Kunti was much older in her years, she became a widow, and as a widow, she became very conscious of not saying or doing anything that may taint her character or the reputation of her children. So therefore, out of her own limitations, she decided to keep silent about Kanna's situation, and there's one reason why she kept silent. She said to herself, and I think it's in my notes, it might not be in my notes actually, she said to herself, because my son has now been given a kingdom, I'm happy. What my children have, Kanna also has. So let him live his life without me. So this is what gave her the reassurance that I don't now need to declare Kanna as my son, because he's been given a kingdom. Anyone here from Bihar? He was the king of Bihar. Angladesh. That's why. Is that okay? Good. All right. It's to yourself first. Viviani.
Just a quick question. I was just wondering, you were saying about the Kanya, has to, be a Kanya. What about the qualifications for the bridegroom? Because
Oh, don't never trust men, huh? They're useless. Can't get anything out of them.
there must be something that, because you're saying it's important
Of course.
that they
Of course. So according to the Vedic culture, I have to say this, especially when you work in a corporate firm, when people have to do these things. In the same way that there are many values and cultures in the world, there is also a value in the Mahabharata era. So I'm only sharing this, not to say this is the best thing to do, but to respect it that this is a way that society also function. According to the Vedic culture, the two genders are not equal. Okay? So in the same way that we have genders who are equal in many cultures, which is very important to do, there are some cultures where genders are not equal. Okay? So in the Vedic culture, which gender would you think is superior?
Female.
Yes! It is the female gender which is superior in the Vedic culture. That is why the Taittiriya Upanishad says, Matra Devo Bhava. That the first God on this planet is the mother. Then, after that, yes, Mata Deva Bhava, then father, Pitri Deva Bhava, then Acharya Deva Bhava, then Atithi Deva Bhava. Yes, exactly. So there are many things in the Vedic culture that women don't have to do. For example, for the male gender, remember I'm saying this not to generalize, I'm just telling you what the Vedic, because you may not know. Okay, we may know the laws of England, of India, and other countries and other cultures, but we may not know what the values of the Mahabharata era is. Therefore, I'm sharing this, okay? And I'm not asking anyone to follow this, I'm just sharing it. And of course, there are people that follow it as well. Not necessarily everyone has to follow, I'm just sharing. So, for example, in the Vedic culture, because women are born pure, therefore they're not required to have samskaras, as an example. You see? The samskaras don't have any effect on females. It is not because females are inferior, therefore they don't require samskaras. In fact, it says in the Dharma Shastras that the only samskara which a female requires is the vivaha samskara. Whereas the male, just saying, okay? Like a mirror, which is dirty, one cannot see one's pratibimba, one's reflection. By performing the samskaras, boys very, very slowly can start to clean the dirty mirror, by which they can see their true identity. Therefore, the samskaras are given to the males. So yes, so I just wanted to point that out for an example. And there are many statements you read in the scriptures that explain this point as well. So for example, if there is no opportunity to do acharan, to purify oneself, the Manu Samhita says, simply look at the face of your wife and become pure. Haribol. I do both. Then I can't go wrong. Wake up in the morning and go down and do my acharan. Okay. So you find so many things like this in the Vedic culture. So I'm just sharing this. Please no one get offended by what I'm saying. Boys are boys and boys are great. Absolutely, I'm one too. Okay? But I'm just sharing what the Vedic culture says. So to answer your question, there's a lot that bridegrooms have to go through in terms of being trained in the samskaras, being trained in the scriptures, learning all the codes of Malab. We're going to discuss this in a few moments. Learning the Vedas, the morality, learning the language, learning all the rules and regulations, and then becoming eligible to take Grihastha Ashram. And then when they become eligible to take Grihastha Ashram, then they take vows. So there are some couples here, like Anshu and Priya, whose wedding ceremony I performed. You can ask them. They took their own vows. And how many years ago was that?
15.
15 years ago! This year is my 21st anniversary. We got married when we were 5 years old, you see. So then they take their vows. I did your wedding ceremony too? Was it your wedding ceremony? No, oh, okay. I did your wedding ceremony, okay. So then the vows, there are about 50 vows that are to be taken. And those vows then usher the conclusions of female training and male training independently. They come together and then they continue their life together. So yeah, there is a lot of things that males also have to do. Yes. And they have to also keep brahmacharya, which is the equivalent of being a kanya. Is that right? Okay. One final question, and then we move on. Thank you.
Knowing the Karna's life story from being abandoned and then treated by his own brothers for the sake of all the Mahabharata fight. What's the reason of that soul coming in that part of the human journey? What's the background? I'm just curious.
It's a very beautiful question, actually. And in fact, going back to our commentator Would you like to answer, Srinivas? You know the answer for this?
Well, I heard,
Yes.
maybe you can correct me. In his previous life, Karna was a half-sister. He was fighting Narayana and Rishi. And then he got defeated, he took shelter of the Surya Dev, right?
Absolutely.
That was the reason.
Yes, this is the reason, absolutely. And remember, we were speaking about the commentator, Madhvacharya. So in the Mahabharata, he mentions that Sugriv, who had cheated to kill Vali. Vali was Indra. Sugriv was Surya. So Vali had cheated Indra. And in that way he killed Indra. In other words, Vali. As a consequence, he came as Karna. Because Indra is the Adipati of Swarg, because he is the king of the celestials. Sugriv incurred negative karma, even though it was the right thing to do. This is an important lesson in life. Even though the means justify the end, in the service of Lord Ram, Vali was killed. But the method employed was adharmic. And therefore, Sugriv came back as Karna. You see? And as Karna, he still carried his hatred. He carried his hatred. And his hatred blew up on a very particular occasion, which we are going to read soon. Is that okay? Thank you so much. Okay, everybody happy? Okay, so we read Kunti and Karna. Should we move on to our next case study? Okay, let's move on to our next case study. Gandhari Putras. Okay, let us discuss this now. So, similarly, once Gandhari, she also served Krishna Dvaipayan Vyas, who came to Hastinapur hungry and fatigued. As a result of being served, he gave Gandhari the blessing of having 100 sons. This is the same blessing that Lord Shiva had also given to Gandhari when she was being raised in the beautiful city of Gandhar in the country of Afghanistan. That is named after her. She was named after the capital of Afghanistan to this day, which is called Gandhar, or in the words of the BBC news reporter, Gandhar. Okay. You never get it right, can they? Right? So, on the blessings of Maharishi Vyas, Gandhari, she conceived. And she noticed that 10 months had gone by, a year had gone by, and then 2 years had gone by. For those who have carried, that's quite a long time, I believe. 2 years of maternity leave. Is that right? No corporate will do that. They won't buy it. So don't try it. She became really sad, afflicted with grief. She then, at the same time, this happens sometimes, doesn't it? When you're going through problems, you hear something that makes your own problem even worse. At that point, Gandhari then heard that Kunti had given birth to a baby boy. And there was a bit of a competition going on. Who can give birth first? She had no chance 2 years later. So, in her being extremely upset to hear this, Sa Udharam, Udhar means the tummy. Sodaram Ghat Yamasa, Ghat means she hit. She started hitting her womb, her tummy, her Udharam. And to her surprise, a hard mass of flesh, like a ball of iron, was delivered from her body. Mamsa Peshi Loha. Loha, you understand the word Loha, iron? This was then delivered. And then she got so confused. I was blessed by Maharishi Vyas, and I delivered an iron ball. She immediately decided to throw it away. Vyas appeared and he stopped her. And he said, "Why are you doubting my words? Whatever I say will always become true." And then Vyas then demonstrates the power of Ayurveda. Okay? It's a bit similar to the NHS. Okay? But I'm on camera, so I need to be careful what I say. Okay? It's an alternative way. Okay? And it works. Vyasadeva then asked for Gandhari's maidservants to bring 100 jars filled up with desi ghee. Okay? Ghee was filled up in 100 jars and placed in a private area where they would not be disturbed by any animals or by uninvited strangers. And then Vyasadeva, using very sacred mantras, he started to sprinkle this ball of iron with water, abhishinchana. And while sprinkling this ball of iron with water, it split into 100 pieces. Gandhari saw this in front of her very own eyes. Then in her mind, she realized, my benediction is to have 100 sons. I would also like to have a daughter. She kept it in her mind. Vyasadeva read her mind. And then he created another division. There were 101 divisions of this iron ball. And then every ball was the size of a thumb. And then he placed every division of this ball, the size of a thumb, into 101 jars filled with ghee. And then, after placing other sacred items and very potent herbs in these jars, he then asked Gandhari not to disturb them for precisely 2 years. And this was the process that Vyasadeva had demonstrated in this very interesting situation on how Gandhari was about to miscarry, and from that situation still manifest into human babies. It's a glimpse of the science in the Mahabharata era that has been documented by Maharishi Vyas. Any questions, comments on this? Maybe Ananda, you can share some points on this? Anything? There's a microphone there actually. Could you share something on this? In Ayurveda, do you have any recollection of anything similar? No. Test tube babies, ghee babies, anything like that? Anybody have some background on this? Any medics over there?
Dronacharya.
Oh yeah, please, you can say. You have that voice.
Dronacharya was born in the cow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Drone.
Yes.
I heard about that.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So this is not the only example. Shyam Sundar Prabhu, this is a special call. Last time he was here as well? Yes. This is my call. Chukya, please marry. Shyam Sundar Prabhu mentioned that even Acharya Drone, he was born in a drona, born in a vessel. So look how advanced the science was in the Mahabharata. Remember, these points I mentioned, because they were part of society, it was normal. It wasn't like an amazing thing that took place. It was a normal part of society. That if during births there were complications, there were medical solutions. And in the Mahabharata, they just mentioned as medical solutions. And one of them was, for example, what Prabhuji mentioned, another situation where a soul was grew into a human by being placed in a very particular vessel. So just an indication of the science of the Mahabharata. It's a very, very powerful science that was around during those days. Any other comments or questions? Yes.
I'm married into a Gujarati family, so I remember when I was about to give birth, they actually said have ghee as a medical thing. So I didn't understand the concept myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have a ghee expert here. My house is full of ghee, by the way. She makes her own ghee. But say something on that?
Yeah, so ghee in Ayurveda is a very important part of your diet, which is really good for mental health. And so we know that when you're pregnant or having a baby, development of the brain is really important. So Western science talks about omega-3 fats, but originally ghee, the way it was produced, the way that the cows were raised, was very potent in omega-3 fats. So ghee is actually also considered, if we break foods down into modes of goodness, ghee is in the mode of goodness, passion, ignorance. Ghee is in the mode of goodness. So it's a sattvic product that helps to increase what we also call as ojas in the body, which is the vitality of health. So Ayurveda constantly talks about ghee as part of aging, as part of pregnancy, as part of development. It's utilized throughout, and especially prenatally and even for the baby.
Can you comment about the misconception about cholesterol?
I think it's not there so much anymore because science has done a U-turn on it and understands the importance of healthy fats in order to have healthy blood vessels and healthy cells, because ultimately they're all made out of a lipid bilayer, so we need soft vessels in our body, which the ghee produces. Interestingly, I was having a discussion on ghee the other day because I'm going to add this because I might as well, a lot of people think that ghee is made from anchor butter. Does anyone think ghee is made from anchor butter, boiled down in a pan? So a lot of people think all you do is you get blocks of butter and you boil it, and then the residue settles, and then you strain it, and that's ghee. But actually, you're missing a very vital step to make ghee. If you go back to Krishna Lila, when they had Markan was actually churned from yogurt. It wasn't from milk. So we immediately have this probiotic cultured effect. And from that yogurt, you then make the cream. From that cream, you make the butter. From that butter, you then make the ghee. So you must have, ghee only comes if it's from yogurt, not from milk. That increases its beneficial effects.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would say more or less that when I was pregnant 40 years ago, I was told in the temple, is what my first interest in Ayurveda, I was told in the temple that the baby would benefit if I ate a lot of ghee, like pure ghee, the baby would have very good skin. When my daughter was born, she had her face and her skin, all her skin was golden, like the color of ghee. Golden, completely golden. And she remained like that until she was maybe 13-year-old. Even golden, completely, like a pot of ghee, like that.
That's amazing.
So,
thank you, Mataji.
Maybe.
Yeah, I see practice, an example of practicing that. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you, Ananda. Okay, so anchor butter cells. Don't blame me, I didn't say that. They're one of my clients, you see. So. Okay, they can make a ghee version, can't they? Okay, thank you so much. Good questions, yes, please.
What about the ghee we buy, like fish and ghee and things like that?
Yeah, another plumbing in the market.
No matter what they say that we've made in the pure Ayurvedic way, I have asked every single brand, not one of them make it from yogurt.
Okay. She said they don't make it from
method, so if anyone wants it, I can share it later, but not now because this is my phone.
What was that point you said?
I have a way that you can make it at home.
Oh, okay. So on the WhatsApp group, you can ask for the ingredients. To make ghee. Let's see what the administrators say. Thank you so much. Someone should write that, please, okay? The administrators are shocked. Okay, so please, sir.
Let me go back to the story. So, when Antari got married before this, right? So Dhritarashtra was also involved in this. So, you said she saw it all happen. She had already put married across our countries.
Yeah, it's such a good. These questions are so meaningful because they're very, they have a foundation in there. So in the Mahabharata, it states, this is a good revealing point. When Gandhari blindfolded herself, there was something that people weren't aware of. Okay? Maybe you can help me with the English here. Okay? There's a lot of words I read, we don't actually use them. Okay? Is the word prophetic? Is that the word? Yeah? Thank you. So her eyes were able to see prophecies. So she actually had ability to peekaboo. Sorry, Baba Gandhari. Through that veil. She covered it out of physical respect for her husband, but actually she was always watching. she was always seeing. Yeah. So she was, she was a devotee of Shiva. So she was really powerful. Hint, she was so powerful. She was able to curse the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So she was a really powerful person. Yeah. Okay, this is a very good question. Now you all know that she was able to see, not just she was blind. She never went like this. She never did that. Okay, she would walk, covered. Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
With her giving birth to a boy's iron, the iron obviously represented Kali, right?
Absolutely.
So that means all of the children, including the girl, had bad qualities?
Yes, very true. So we're going to read, for example, it's here. Dushashan. Dushashan was the next birth of Indrajit. Indrajit, please come. I think on Tuesday, we'll be confirming this on Tuesday. I'll add it to the WhatsApp group. On the 30th of March, we'll be doing a Ramayana Katha. Okay? And the Ramayana Katha, I think none of you would have heard this version. This is called the Adhyatma Ramayana. Adhyatma. The spiritual Ramayana. Not written by Maharishi Valmiki, but written by Vyas, the author of the Mahabharata. When he read the Valmiki Ramayana, he wanted to provide the spiritual version of the Ramayana. So this katha would be the Vyas's Ramayana, called Adhyatma Ramayana. So it's going to be very interesting to hear all the ins and outs of this. So there you're going to find out how Indrajit was able to fight Lakshman and Ram to a point where Lakshman was about to die and Ram was unconscious. That's how powerful Indrajit was. And these are real things, by the way, huh? This is why Hanuman went to get the mountain, because Indrajit was very powerful, very powerful. He could create a challenge for Ram himself. And he did create a challenge for Ram. He came back as Dusashan, the wretched. So Dusashan. So yeah, the question is very, very correct. All of these 100 sons, they were all Daityas, all Asuras. And the king of the Asuras was the emperor of Kali Yuga, Duryodhana. Okay.
Adhyatma Ramayana.
Adhyatma. Very good. So, Atma, in this conscious means spirituality. Adhyatma. Adhyatma means the original spiritual drivers of the Ramayana episode. So, for example, so this is going to turn to Ramayana. Just 1 minute, okay? 1 minute. Just 1 minute. When Sita and Ram got married, they were living so happily together. Narad became worried. Ram has descended to perish Ravan, and he's happily married. What's going to happen to the devatas? Then Maharishi Narad, he said to Saraswati, we've got to do something about this. So Saraswati, she said, I will enter the tongue of Mantara. Mantara, someone who's problems. Yeah, Mantara. Saraswati entered the tongue of Mantara and informed Gay, you have two boons, and this is the time to ask for them. So actually, Narad and Saraswati influenced Gay and Mantara to create a disruption for Dasharath, by which Lord Ram's marriage became a challenge. So we're going to hear that in the Adhyatma Ramayana. That's not there in Valmiki Ramayana, like that. Okay. The question? Yes.
Is it true that Shakuni wanted to get revenge on Bhishma because he got Gandhari married to Dhritarashtra, which means she blindfolded herself, but then she could actually see everything, so why did he?
Yeah, such a good point. So was Shakuni trying to take revenge on Bhishma for marrying his beautiful sister to a blind man like Dhritarashtra? The answer is yes. You're absolutely correct. And the second part of your question was?
But then he said that Gandhari could see what through her blindfold. So why did she come so and?
Yeah, sure. So Gandhari never told anyone that her eyes could prophesize the future and see the present. So Shakuni wasn't able to know this. And Gandhari, many times, she had actually, she had blamed the whole war on Krishna. And you're going to read why. It's not just one line, it's pages and pages and pages of accusations. Like literally like 100 accusations she has on Lord Krishna. This happened because of you. That happened because of you. And you got a hairy response. Krishna's response to Gandhari is so funny. I'm telling you. You know, I won't share it now, so I'll spoil it. We will go through it on session 4. The way he responds to her, it's just amazing. She blasphemes it a lot, more than Shishupal. So yeah, we're gonna read about that. Okay, so she was a trickster. She could see, yet she hid herself. Pooja? Yes. Sorry, Pooja, you had your hand up? Oh no, yes. Jay.
How come, even though she could see through the blindfold, she had a boon that anyone she looked at would become powerful?
Yes.
How come that everyone she looked at didn't become powerful? Like,
Yes, of course. So what she did was she transferred all of her tapasya, all of her merits of performing austerities. She transferred all of that into the body of Duryodhana. So that's what she done. So she chose not to transfer that to everyone who she saw, only to the person who she decided to see in that way. All right? We had one question here, and then I'll come to you. Yes.
Hi, just a follow-up to her question. Why did Gandhari open her eyefold despite her being able to see that Duryodhana wasn't fully undressed?
Still again?
So Duryodhana, in the story when she opens the eyefold, the blindfold, basically she instructs Duryodhana to be fully undressed so that his full body can get protected. But when Duryodhana wasn't fully undressed, still she opened the blindfold.
Yes.
She would have avoided that situation when his legs were protected.
Yeah, I understand. So basically what happens is, you're going to read, I think in the 1 or 2 case studies time, when certain things are done, there's a very particular alignment that has to be in place. They also call this muhurtas. So what happens is, because we are confined to certain times, you have no option but to execute at a certain time. You see? Because if you don't execute at a certain time, the consequence is the opposite. It can be devastating for oneself. So the concept of muhurtas So, for example, myself, when I travel, when I do certain activities that are important, I always look at the auspicious times. I do it as a way that we look at our phones to plan out. I plan my diary around muhurtas, and it helps me a lot. I highly encourage you that if you were to create a little bit of connection with the astro existence, you will find that a lot of your activities become much more conducive and positive. I highly recommend and suggest that muhurtas are not only done for puja, but for some of your important decisions. For example, buying a property, or entering into a new home, or anything which you find is very important in your life, do it in a good muhurat. You're going to see in the Mahabharata, if you do good things in a bad muhurat, there will be a consequence which is negative. Remember, there's Krishna science. So muhurtas are very important. You don't need to become completely obsessed by it, but be practical. I use it and it works wonders. I hate turbulences, for example. So I have turbulence-free muhurtas that I use. And it actually works. Sorry.
I've got two questions.
Sure.
For Muhurat, where can we look that up that we can actually see? And the second question is, if Mata Gandhari had the ability to see in the future, she therefore knew that in Mahabharata, the war and what the sons would do. She wasn't able to avoid all of that?
This is one of the criticisms of Krishna that she shares. This is that point. She said, "You're God, this was going to happen, why didn't you stop it?" This was...
But she could see it
Of
in
course.
the future.
Of course.
She was the mother.
Yeah.
Did she not have the power to stop it?
Absolutely. So there are many times in the Mahabharata where she chastises Duryodhana and Dusashan and says to them, this will happen. But they ignored their parents. Familiar.
So like that. I think it's
Push it out? Yeah, that's it. Thank you. And it was, thank you. You had a second question? No.
About Muhurat,
Muhurat,
where
yes.
can we look that up in English?
So my honest suggestion is I can very easily share a very quick deep dive into muhurtas. Let's see if I can do that on session 4. It's very simple. There are certain times of the day called Rahu Kal, Yama Kal, etc., Gulika Kal, and I can show you how to understand what they represent. And then there are lots of websites nowadays that you can, online. I would recommend one whose name I will write down a bit later on. And you can go to the section of Jogadiya, and in the Jogadiya you will see the list of muhurtas, and you can use those to plan some of the important parts of your life. These are very simple things. Remember, this is very simple stuff. It gets complicated when you don't have someone to explain it. That's the only difference, basically.
Based on UK.
Based on UK time.
Position, not
Exactly. That's also a very important point. The longitude latitude has to be according to your local home. Yes, absolutely. So I'll try to provide that. Yeah, I think it's called Panchang something. Anyway, I'll write it. It's on my phone. It's all on the phone. It's on the app. Let me sign this. Let me do that. I use it. I love it. Thank you. You had a question here?
Oh, this answer.
Well, you take it. And then we have one question here.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, so I read in one variation that when Duryodhana was gambling his brothers, he said that he had, or when he was gambling, Duryodhana, when he was gambling against Yudhishthira, he had authority over his brothers, but he said all of them were born at the same time in like 100 different parts, so how did he have authority over them when he was the same age as them?
Duryodhana and his brothers?
And his 19 brothers.
They were all born one after the other, not at the same time.
Oh, right, okay.
100%, yeah. Or I believe, we're going to read it here, actually. I believe it says that in a month. Over a month they were born.
So Duryodhana was the first one?
Exactly, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Was that okay? Should we move on now to the next one? Okay. Everyone is enjoying? Yeah? Good, okay. I just wanted to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak, comment, question. It's a safe space. And if there's anything you say which you don't want on the recording, we will cut it out, okay? So don't feel afraid to be open, okay? I've already said to the administrator, I want to review the recordings before they go out. So please be very open. You're in a safe space to share anything you would like. Okay, shall we move on now? Next one, should we have a break after this one? Yeah, after Duryodhana's birth, everyone needs a break. So we have a break after his birth. Right. Poor guy, isn't it? One day I'll... Was the one before? Let's have a look. That's the one. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, no problem. No, it's good to check, good to check. You know, I might be skipping the hard ones. So it's good to check. Duryodhana's birth. The moment we have all been waiting for. Is there anything good about him? I'll try to find something. I'll try to find maybe the way he treated his wife, maybe, or his sons. He married his daughter to Krishna's son. Did that make him good? Maybe.
He gave a boon to Arjuna.
He gave a boon to Arjuna. Please, what would you tell us?
I think the Ganda was going to kill him. He went to the forest where the Pandavas were staying. He disturbed them. The Gandhavas were came. And they were enjoying in this lake. Duryodhana wanted to take it over. And the fight took place. And the Gandhavas was going to kill Duryodhana. Then the Kauravas came to Yudhishthira and said, please help Duryodhana, they will kill him. Then Yudhishthira said, be my Arjuna. And they freed Duryodhana. And then
He blessed him. Perfect. Good. All right, so there's one good thing about them. Yes.
When,
You guys are fans. I was only joking. Okay, go on, Tom. Wait.
And at that point, Duryodhana said that was that.
That's true. That is true. Isn't that a good thing? Yeah, 2, 3 things.
It's good to cover.
Oh, absolutely. He was the best thing for him. There's there's a song I'll sing at that point. You know, I remind me of a Bollywood song. I'll try singing it, okay? When Kanna and Arjun met, you remember? एक फिल्म थी ना Kanna Arjun. You remember that film? कितने साल पहले? 1996. In 1996, there was a film in India called Kanna Arjun. You seen that? Have you seen it? Yes! There is a song in there. Can you remember the song? We will come to the song at that time. Basically, I was translating the Mahabharata, and when I read the conversation between Kanna and Arjun, that song just came in my mind. 1996 Bollywood film, Kanna Arjun. So when I sing it later on, you'll understand why. Okay, you know what song it is? Yeah, okay. Say it. Hanji.
Balramji's favorite student was Duryodhana.
That's another thing.
Yeah.
Okay, these are too many things now which are too good for him, okay? Let's keep it that. Oh, this is a good crowd. Okay, should we move on? Okay. Duryodhana's birth 1 year later and 4 days after Yudhishthira's birth. Kali, Satan, Shaitan, the most purest form of evil ever in this universe came as Duryodhana. Bhim and Dusashan was born the same day, 1 day after. Balaram was born 2 months later. So Balaram was actually junior. Prabhuji, Balaram was junior to Duryodhana in age. When Duryodhana was born, he roared and brayed like a donkey. I won't even try, okay, to mimic that. Like a donkey, he was roaring. And when he started to roar like a donkey, some animals responded back. Can you believe that? There was a thing going on between the donkey Duryodhana and some animals. Vultures, jackals, and crows started to spontaneously cry in his war. Strong winds began suddenly, and everywhere fires just raged. At that point, the father, Dhritarashtra, became frightened, and he approached Bhishma and Vidur, whose name is also Katva. And he also approached the Brahmins, and he said the following line, Yudhishthiro Rajaputro. This is a very important verse to read. This is the first time in the Mahabharata where Yudhishthir is spoken of by Dhritarashtra. And you need to be attentive to see what he says about Yudhishthir, because this is the first time you will understand what the original version was. Jeshto naha kulavardanaha praptaha swa gunato rajyam na tasmin vachyamasti. He says, the eldest of the princes in our dynasty is indeed Yudhishthir, and he will be the person who grows our dynasty. Yudhishthir has acquired our kingdom by virtue of his birth. We have nothing further to say on this matter. This was the conclusion of Dhritarashtra. He always knew Yudhishthir is meant to be the king. There was no doubt about this. No further discussion was required. Yet, this being the conclusion, Dhritarashtra completely deviated from his own conclusions later on in life. This is why I wanted to point this out. He always knew the truth, and he declared it as well. But then he asked, but what will happen to my son after Yudhishthir becomes king? Tell me what will be the truth. At that point, other animals began to howl from all sides. It became a negative environment. Vidur, having observed the omens during Duryodhana's birth and around, he then said, according to the Shakun Shastra, there is a Vidya, a text called Shakun Shastra. Shakun Shastra is all about omens. This is a very good book. I recommend you read this. You'll be surprised. You're walking down on the way to work, certain animals pass on your left, you're going to get bad news the moment you sit on the desk. You'll be very surprised. These are natural things. You can ignore them. You can be in ignorance. Is never bliss, okay? That saying, I don't know where that saying came from. There's no bliss in ignorance at all. If you're even slightly, remember, you don't have to read everything. Just a few things is good as well. If you're aware of omens, you can prepare yourself for what's going to happen next. And you're going to read in the Ramayana, we done the Sita Katha last year in November. Sita Mata, when she was being taken by Lakshman across the Ganga, she mentioned, my right eye, right arm are all pulsating. Something inauspicious was about to happen. And she was separated from the love of her life forever. So even the Devi Devatas, Krishna, the avatars, all follow Shakun Shastra. So I recommend you all in your own time. Nowadays, information is available to all of us online, so you can just have a look. I've been doing this for 30 years, so for me I'm not boasting, I'm just being honest. I'm just aware of these things. I've been studying it for a long time. I'm sure some of you will also be studying it for longer than that, and some maybe less. But I'm just sharing with you a few things that I have found useful, especially when you read it in Shastra. So, Vidur was very much aware of Shakun omens. And he said, based upon what I am observing, there is evidence to suggest that your son, Duryodhana, will be the exterminator of our entire dynasty. Therefore, he requested him, keep 99 sons, get rid of him. Get rid of Duryodhana. He said this to him repeatedly. And this is a verse which will become apparent during the time of the Lakshagriha, when Bhim murdered the sister and the 5 sons of Purochan to escape from the house of wax. This verse, Vidal mentions, according to the scriptures, an individual should be abandoned for the sake of a family for the sake of a village for the sake of a country, and atmarte prithirim tyajet, for the sake of the soul, one should abandon the world, i.e., materialistic life. So this is a very important verse. Somebody asked last time, how do you know your Swadharma? In the Mahabharata, there is a canto. Remember I gave a list of the cantos? There's a canto where Bhishma, he speaks tens and thousands of verses. The Bhagavatam is 18,000 verses, right? Bhishma speaks tens and thousands of verses to describe all morals, all ethics. He even talks about the importance of bathing as an example. That's also in the Mahabharata. Tens and thousands of verses in Swadharma. And such words of niti, polity, such words of morals are all in the Mahabharata text. However, Dhritarashtra, despite hearing the advice, despite hearing the advice of his brother Vidbur, he did not do so. He did not abandon his donkey crying baby son, because the crying of the donkey was so pleasing to his ears. It was so sweet, so much affection. His heart was oozing towards his son, born of an iron ball in a jar of in a jar of garam ghee left over for 2 years. He said, Putra sneha samanvita. I have extreme affection for my beautiful boy, and therefore I will not abandon him. He is the closest thing to my life. I love Duryodhana. That is what he said. That part can be cut out and put on social media. Shriadavan says, I love Duryodhana. This is what he said. And in this way, Duryodhana survived, and we have stories to tell you after your break. Them, making them fight while simultaneously laughing. He was very, very good at defeating all 100 brothers easily. While playing in the water, he would drown 10 of them with him. And only when they were about to die, he would release them. So Bhim was doing this regularly. When the Kurus would sit on trees to rest and relax, he would shake the trees so the fruits and his cousins fell down. He would do this regularly. So in speed, combat, or any ability, none of the Kurus could match Bhim. And in this way, Duryodhana, he became hostile. He realized that this being, even through his play, can match all of us 100 sons. Therefore, Duryodhana, for the first time in the Mahabharata, these are the words that Vyas mentions about Duryodhana's mentality. He says, Tasya dharmat ape dasya papani paripashyataha. The wicked and unrighteous Duryodhana, as a result of illusion, mohat, and greed for opulence, aishwarya, lobhat, manifested his mentality of pap, evil, sin. And in this way, he decided to murder Bhim by throwing him into the Ganga while asleep, so that his motivation of being the king on earth can be successful. Because Yudhishthir and Arjun all relied upon Bhim. And if Bhim is finished, so is Yudhishthir. In order to achieve this selfish desire, Duryodhana invited the Pandavas to a brand new palace which he had personally asked to be constructed. It was called the Udaka Kridhana. It was a water sport palace. Just water sport activities were the main purpose of this palace that he had built. And he had cooks which had prepared food and drinks for the cousins. Once after playing with Bhima, Duryodhana personally began to exchange food into the mouth of Bhima. It says in the Mahabharata that his heart was like a razor, but his tongue was nectarian. And in this way, Duryodhana, with his own hands, he personally fed many quantities of food mixed in poison for Bhima to eat. Now, this poison that was fed to Bhima, you'll be very interested to know that many yugas before, when the Devatas, the celestials, and the Daityas, the Asuras, were churning the ocean of milk, when from the mouth of Vasuki, the most dangerous form of poison manifested, it was drunk by Har Har Mahadev, by Lord Shiva, and he kept it in his Ganta. From his Ganta, the Brahmin of the Daityas, Shukra Acharya, he asked Lord Shiva, the poison which is in your throat, give me some drops of it. Shukra Acharya, he pleased Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva from his mouth, he regurgitated some of that Gala Kut, that poison, and Shukracharya kept that poison. Just one drop could destroy the entire universe. Shakuni did tapasya and worshipped Shukracharya and secured that very same poison. It was Shakuni who had placed that poison of millions of years ago into the food of Bhima. That was the poison. He did not see any fault of Duryodhana. It says here, Bhimsen tam vei dosham agyata. He was completely unaware of any dosh, of any wicked motivation by Duryodhana, and very happily Bhim would eat the food that was placed in his mouth through the hands of Duryodhana. They continued playing, and in the evening, naturally, he became fatigued. Bhim, he lied down in the garden of the water sport park, and then his brothers and the gurus went on to play on the amusements. And then Bhim, as he lay down, he suddenly became unconscious and senseless. It was Duryodhana on his own who then tied, using creepers, the body of Bhim together. He did it on his own. And then he pushed the body of Bhim into the Ganga. This part I'm sure all of you are very familiar with. And then what happened was, as soon as he landed into the Ganga, many snakes started to bite him. They bit him all over the body except for the chest. Every time a snake would bite the chest of Bhim, the fangs would snap, because Bhim had a solid chest. And while these snakes were biting the body of Bhim, they simultaneously neutralized the Galakut, the poison. Bhim immediately woke, and he started to thrash the serpents, the snakes, using his feet and his hands. He got rid of the creepers that were tied around his body. Bhim, at that point, while he was defeating the snakes that had come to bite him, some of them fled away and ran to the king of the snakes in the Ganga, Vasuki. Vasuki was then told by Arka, who was the grandfather of Kunti, this Bhim is my grandson. And he's about to go through so many tribulations in his life. Please feed to him the powerful dasa, which contains the strength of 1,000 elephants. Bhim then met his grandfather Ark, and Ark then fed Bhim this rasa. And Bhim drank 8 jars non-stop, one after the other. And while he drank those, he started to feel so tipsy that he just fell asleep on a beautiful bed in the Ganga. And he slept for days and days after drinking this beautiful nectar, this rasa. Yudhishthir and his brothers and the Kauravas returned back home, and Yudhishthir thought that maybe Bhim had gone home himself. He saw that Mother Kunti was alone. Yudhishthir then became very anxious, and he said to Mother Kunti, "Where is Bhim? He is nowhere to be found, anywhere." Therefore, he felt that actually, while he was sleeping, possibly somebody killed him, which is why he hasn't yet returned. Kunti became anxious, her heart became uncontrollably sad, and then Kunti then approached Vidur and asked Vidur, "Please help me." Vidur then said, "I have already been told that your sons will be the future emperors of this world. Don't worry, all will be well with Bhima." Nevertheless, Kunti became very upset, and she mentioned this line, which is very important for us to know, because it gives us an insight of what actually was happening behind the scenes. Kunti mentioned that Bhim is always in the evil eye of Duryodhana. The Kuru sons, they're all wicked, narrow-minded and greedy for sovereignty, and they're shameless. My heart burns and my mind is anxious, thinking that they may have conspired and killed Bhim. This is how Kunti was feeling, and Yudhishthira was also very, very upset. Days went by, and there was no return of Bhim. Precisely 8 days later, when Bhim woke after drinking 8 jars of rasa, then he was asked by his grandfather, Kunti will be very concerned, "Please go back." Bhim ran from the beds of the Ganga, floated to the top, and returned home very fast, because the amount of quantity which he had drunk from his grandfather's hand was the equivalent of 10,000 elephants. Essentially, this made him invincible in battle. And then after being returned, and he informed Kunti and Yudhishthir and his brothers of what happened, Yudhishthir said, Tushnin Bhava, Tushnin Bhava. Stay silent. Don't hurt anybody. Don't disturb the family by telling them what you went through. And this was actually the answer Yudhishthira would give every time that his cousins would do anything. He would say, just tolerate. Just keep silent. Such a beautiful person, Yudhishthira. And then what happened was Bhim obviously returned to play with his cousins. And again, Duryodhana attempted to murder Bhim. This time, he put more quantities of poison in the food. And in fact, Duryodhana's stepbrother, whose name was Yutsu, he told Bhim, don't eat this food. It has even more poison. Bhim happily ate again, knowing that nothing would happen to him. And in this way, Duryodhana, Karna, and Shakuni, they tried many, many other ways to try to murder Bhim. And every single time they were unsuccessful, and they never ever complained. Questions, comments, please? Yes.
So, Bhim was actually Hanuman, right?
Mm.
Hanuman was the Ansh or Shiva.
Yes.
So basically, Shiva taking the poison, nothing happening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is a very important point we're mentioning, because in the story of the Mahabharata, you're going to see parts of Lord Shiva manifest through Bhima. For example, as you know, Hanuman is famed for dousing Lanka in fire. And Bhim is famed for dousing which place in fire? The house of wax. There are so many correlations, similarities between Bhim and Hanuman. They do the same thing in both times. Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Dean was kind of like a bully for the 100 brothers and he tried to drown him. Isn't it kind of justified that they tried to kill him or something?
It's a very good question, actually. Was being bullying the Kauravas? Absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely. Madhvacharya explains in the Mahabharata Paranyaya. See, these questions that are being asked, no one can answer them. You can ask anyone, they can't answer them. Because there's no basis for the answers. Apart from Mahabharata Paranyaya, the thematic commentary on Madhvacharya. This is why he wrote this. So a lot of the questions you're asking, when the School of Bhakti asked me to do this course, I said to them that I can't do this course because I don't have the answers for the questions, because I have the same questions. All of you have questions. So I said, when I'm in India in September, I'll secure the manuscript of the Mahabharata Paranyaya, and I estimate minimum 100 hours of study before doing the course. So we pushed it out until this time. So even I don't know I didn't know the answers. The thematic commentary provides the answers. So these are questions that are really good. And whoever has the thematic commentary can answer these questions, not just me, anyone can answer, but I'm trying to emphasize the importance of having the commentary. Otherwise it's all speculation. So Madhvacharya explains that when Hanuman and Bhim appeared, in order to incite and bring out the hatred of the demons towards them, they would rub them up the wrong way, essentially. So that's actually the answer, the Mother says. Yeah? Purposefully. One small example. So when Duryodhana fell into the water during his visit of Indraprastha, you remember that time? Yeah? The story, obviously, you know, we're going to go through it at some point. But when he fell in, everybody was very respectful. Everybody was very respectful of Duryodhana falling in. Now look, respectfully, dhotis can become see-through when they're wet. There were ladies, everyone was there. Nobody laughed. Except one person, guess who? Come on, think rationally. Yes, of course. Krishna, Peter, the scripture says he done his smile. And when he smiled, everyone burst into laughter. You see? It was the same smita, the same smile that Ram had given to Lakshman when Surapanaka had come asking for Ram's hand. He smiled, and you know what Lakshman did to her. So Krishna incited him, and Bhim just could uncontrollably laugh. The whole palace was shaking with laughter, you know, because he fell into the water. But incited by Krishna. Is that okay? It's amazing, huh? Krishna's always the one, you know, pulling at the words. And there was the question.
The question was, Bhima has the strength of 10,000 elephants. How come it took? So, like, what powers did the Kauravas possess that they took? So, like, Bhima didn't just click them and put them. Yeah.
So, what powers did the Kauravas possess?
No, but then, like, he didn't, like, destroy them straight away. Like, why did that little mosquito, like, it was. It took a lot, like 18 days, which is fine, but like I know Duryodhana had Gandhari's blessing.
Oh, I see.
But the other Kauravas, he didn't just like kill them really quickly, it took a while. But did they have?
Good question. So in the Mahabharata war, which I think we'll do in session 4, there are many situations where Bhima is about to do that, but he lets them live for someone else to do it. So for example, when Sahadev took a vow to slaying Shakuni, so Bhima let him off. So like that.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then what happened was the Duryodhana, we're going to read on how he used many arts to defeat the Pandavas. One of them was when he increased his army beyond the size of the Pandavas to get an advantage. And he would also use the black arts, the black magic he would use as well. And he would have many mystical ways to defeat the Pandavas as well. And then he had people like Bhishma, who was, he could decide when to pass away. Then he had Brihaspati himself in form of Drona. So he had many advantages, basically, like that. Is that okay? There was another hand somewhere? Yes.
Why Dushman, why would Yudhishthir ask Bhima to such injustice?
Absolutely. So sometimes in families, looking around here, sometimes in families, when something goes wrong, in order to keep the peace, sometimes it's good to keep quiet, in hope that things don't happen again. So in families, sometimes you have to bite the bullet to keep things calm. I think when people have those experiences sometimes in life, you have to tolerate. And Krishna speaks of that in the Gita as well. Tam satikshasva bharata. Learn to tolerate without being disturbed. Well, obviously, there's a limit to that as well. When we read the tolerations in the Mahabharata too. Is that okay? Yudhishthira had a good nature. He was always hoping, very optimistic, hoping for the best. Okay. All right. Next story. Next case study. Let's move on to the next case study. Oh, this is going to be a bit of a tricky one for the Arjun fans here. Okay. The ultimate sacrifice for Arjun. When schooling had begun under the auspices of Drona Acharya, Drona had said to his students that I will teach you all, but you need to pledge to fulfill an unknown desire of mine. Everyone kept silent except Arjun. Arjun said, I take a vow, Drona, anything you ask for, I will fulfill. And as a result of that, immediately Drona became attached to Arjun. All of you know, he requested Arjun later to capture Drupad, his childhood friend. Yeah, this was the vow he wanted to complete it. Now, what I would like to share with you is that when you read books and you watch the TV serials, I found a contradiction which is quite heavy. In the next verse, it explains how the Vrishnis, the Andakas, which are basically the extended family of Lord Krishna, and princes from many countries had come to Gurugram. Are we going to Gurugram next week? Gurugram. Week after that, sorry. Gurugram, which is previously Gurgaon. Okay, Gurgaon. Drona's school in Gurgaon was for everyone, all princes. So believe it or not, in the Mahabharata text, it says, Sutaputrashcharadhayo, that Karna's first guru was actually Drona. He wasn't rejected by Drona. Karna was schooled along with his brothers and cousins, unknowingly to him. So Karna was actually at the same school. He was very well known to Drona and the brothers. Now, Karna at this point had not become close to the Kurus and to the Pandavas, but he was a student at the same school. And this is the verse that says that. However, Karna was always jealous of Arjuna. And he always criticized him. Sridha, manastu parthena. And slowly by slowly, Duryodhan would start to support this boy Karna. So here's a bit of background for those who want to know about Karna. He was also given the same privileges as the others. And his guru was also Drona. Fundamental difference compared to every source that I have seen in on the Mahabharata. Fundamental difference. Arjun, always remaining on the side of Drona, excelled in the Dhanur Ved. So there are certain Vedas, we had a list written earlier, last week. The Upavedas, one of them is, for example, the Gandharva Ved, the art of music, the Ayurveda, the art of medicine, and Upaved, the military sciences. And Drona gave Ashwatthama, his son, a wide-mouthed kamandalu, waterpot. And everybody else had a narrow mouth, a waterpot. So that Ashwatthama would return from collecting water quicker than others. And during that time, his father, Drona, would give Ashwatthama special classes and learnings. Arjun, being very conscientious, he noticed this. And then when he would go to collect water, he would embed the Varunastra into his water pot, the weapon of water, so that his pot would be filled instantly. And then Arjun would return back to Ashwatthama and be receptive. He would listen to the extra classes that Drona would give his son Ashwatthama. Once Drona had asked the cook, don't give Arjun food at night time. Once while Arjun was eating at night, the lamps were extinguished by heavy wind. Arjun noticed that he was still able to eat in the dark. He realized this habit can become very advantageous if I started to practice my Dhanurvidya at night time as well. So from this little experience, Arjun then began to shoot arrows at night. Drona was so happy to see how Arjun was very enthusiastic to make the most. And Drona's pleasure became so beyond him that this is the first time when he said to Arjun those words that Arjun kept with him until the end. Nanyo dhanurdaraha tvat samo bhavita loke. Samo bhavita. At this point in our life, in this planet, loke, samanvita, there will be no other dhanurdhara. There will be no other archer better than you in your life. And I will teach you to become the best ever bowman. This was the time when Drona gave this vow, this promise to Arjun, after seeing his enthusiasm to become the best ever student. Some days later, the next controversial parts of this story, for those who are born in India will know this hits really hard sometimes. Ekalavya, the son of the Nishad, the tribe of hunters, whose father was Hiranyadhanu. He was rejected by Drona. Drona said, I cannot teach the tribe of the hunters because you have not been born with the capacity to digest the Vedas. Therefore, I am not able to teach you. However, this person called Ekalavya, this was not the only reason. It was not only discrimination of caste, which is what people think. There was other reasons. Ekalavya, believe it or not, was the cousin brother of Krishna. That is why Ekalavya joined Jarasandha in the battle to defeat Krishna. Ekalavya, his father was the brother of Vasudeva, whose name was Devashara. And for unknown reasons, Devashrava gave up and renounced Ekalavya in his childhood because of his wicked mentality and his evil ways. And then he was raised by the hunter tribe. This was known to Drona. This is the exiled son of the Yadus, and I will not teach him, because in the same school, the Vrishnis, the Yadus, are attending. So there's more to just so-called caste discrimination. There is the teacher looking at the person himself and thinking, this is not a suitable candidate to be in my school. However, Drona was very compassionate. He allowed Ekalavya to touch his feet, and he blessed him. He said to him, if you in your heart accept me as your guru, I will bless you to learn and advance in your Dhanurvidya. Now, Ekalavya, he had actually already mastered something called the Vaishach Astra Vidya. He had learned from ghosts and goblins the art of warfare of that particular community. He now wanted to advance further, and therefore he asked Drona to become his guru and to enroll him in his school. These are all many reasons why Drona rejected him. So it's not just what people think for many, many years. It is not just because of him being a Nishad that he was rejected. After touching the feet of Drona, he made a clay statue of him. He worshipped him every day, and he self-taught himself based upon his devotion to his teacher. Once upon a time, when the Pandavas and the Kurus went on a retreat, the servant of Drona brought their dog along with them. And the dog was running around everywhere, and suddenly the dog returned back to the boys with 7 arrows in its mouth. And they were shocked to see this. Who was able to hit 7 arrows in the mouth of our dog? The servant mentioned this dog was barking so loudly that from nowhere 7 arrows came and shut his mouth. And apparently these arrows were Shabdavedi. Shabdavedi means just by hearing, Ekalavya managed to hit the target. He didn't look at the target, he didn't see the target. He just shot the arrows from wherever he was and it landed in the mouth of the dog. That's how advanced he was. Arjun then asked Ekalavya, who are you? They traced the dog's steps and he said, I'm a disciple of Acharya Drona. Arjun went back and he told Drona everything that happened. Drona immediately took Arjun by the hand and approached Ekalavya. He said to Ekalavya, if I am your guru and I have taught you everything, then Toya Angushto Dakshino Diyatam. Give me the thumb of your right hand. Unshaken in heart and very cheerful, Ekalavya lopped off his right thumb and gave it to Dronacharya. Ekalavya then lost his lightness of hand, and Arjun became pleased because Vigata Jwara. Jwara means fever. Vigata means jealousy. Arjun's jealousy, fever of jealousy, was cured. Dun, dun, dun. This was the sacrifice that was made for Arjun. And then Arjun said, now, Nanya, Bhi, Bhivat Arjunam. Now the words of Drona will be fulfilled. There will be no better archer than Arjun. Vigat Jwara. Fever of jealousy. Drona was very compassionate. He again blessed Ekalavya. This part also many people don't know. Drona took Ekalavya by the hand, the other hand, sorry. Okay. One was a little bit disfigured. By the other hand, to Mount Levat, and he taught him other vidyas, other methods of warfare that did not require, for example, here, Brahma Upadeh. This is the first verse of the Rigveda. I will go through this in a moment. He taught him other vidyas. I won't go into the detail, but along with the Vedas, there are alternative sciences, for example, the Agamas or the Pancharatrika texts. So there are other alternative sciences to the Vedas which coexisted with the Vedas. Okay? So he taught him that to please him. And in this way, Drona was always very kind to Ekalavya. But as you can see, many, many times his wicked nature would come out, and he was an avatar of an asur called Manimanta. Manimanta was an asur from whom Ekalavya expanded from. And all of you know that after seeing only the head of the bird in the tree, and also striking an alligator underwater with 5 arrows to rescue Acharya Drona, Arjun became his ultimate favorite, and Dronacharya bestowed to Arjun the Brahmashira, the most powerful weapon of Lord Brahma, making him invincible. Vigat Jwara. Questions, comments, please?
In school, who was more powerful, Arjun or Arjun? While we were on the screen.
So when in school, definitely Arjun. Definitely Arjun. And what happened was, when Karna realized this is not going my way, right? This is gone. Guru, this person, pet, this will happen. I can't become the pet of the teacher anymore. Then he went to Parusharam, the guru of Drona. Then he became superior to Arjun, having learned from Drona's guru, Parusharam.
See, that Eklavya was actually not very nice. He's evil.
So what happened was correct. When he was born, his father gave him up for him being a very wicked and evil child. So from the beginning, there were issues with Ekalavya, and this was known to Dronacharya. One of the reasons why he rejected him, because of himself being rejected by his father, the family of Krishna renounced him.
He was actually Krishna's cousin.
Absolutely. Krishna's cousins were quite envious of him. Shishupal, one of them, Ekalavya, the other. I suppose it's quite difficult to have someone like Krishna as a cousin, you know? Always grows old, looks better, goes to school, gets better marks, you know? Always handsome, always beautiful, knows what to say, everyone loves him, can't fault him, never does anything wrong. Yeah. So I think it was difficult for his cousins to be around him. It was playing time. Would you like to go first? Given what I said earlier? Only joking, much. Yeah. It's a very good point. So you see what happened was Karna was cursed by Parusharam because he gained knowledge by lying. He said, I'm a Brahmin. Because Parusharam wouldn't teach non-Brahmins. His purpose was to control the militaries, the Kshatriyas, and therefore he would only teach Brahmins. So Karna actually lied to Parusharam to become his disciple. And that's the reason. Any education given through a cheating method becomes disadvantaged. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he had the ability to lie to Parusharam, who's basically avatar. Yeah.
It's Brahmasira. Is that the same as Brahmastra?
Different. So Brahmastra is different, Brahmashira is a different weapon. Yeah, different weapon. Brahmashira can only be used in for non-humans. It can't be used on humans. And it's also a weapon which Lord Ram actually used on Ravan because he considered him to be non-human. Yeah, he considered him to be a Rakshas. Yeah. Sorry, no, I think you would accept.
People had the Brahmastra. Who knew how to use it?
Krishna? Drona, Bhishma, and Arjun, and Ashwatthama. Yeah, I think that was the number. Karna, I will have to check. I will check that one. I'm not sure. I don't think he was given the Brahmastra. Yeah, because he had offended the Brahmins, by pretending to be one. So I don't think he was given that. Yeah. The divine weapons are actually people. They're actually people, and they manifest to someone who does tapasya. If you want to know the procedure, let me know. Free of charge. Please, Babaji.
So I understand that Krishna brings his partners in doing Leela, but it sounds like when Krishna comes, then everyone should get back to the spiritual world who came in touch with him. Now we can see that there is a comeback of many of the devotees, non-demons. So what does that represent? What does that tell us about?
Yeah, Prabhuji, it's a very good point. So in the Mahabharata and Tatparya, it doesn't align with the generic thinking. It's very specific. So you'll find that those that were around during Lord Ram's time, there was a question, I think, on the WhatsApp group as well, on the Slido. They didn't go back to the spiritual world, even despite being with Lord Ram. The same with Lord Krishna as well. This whole cycle of karma seems to be very complex. That not everybody, because ultimately, this will be there's a deviance from the topic, but ultimately, Devan Deva Yajo Yanti Mad Bhakta Yanti Mam Api. That to come back to me, and the Gita Krishna says, you have to be in a genuine and authentic relationship with him. When at the time of death, you will not think of him and therefore go to him. But if you are in a relationship with Krishna, a genuine relationship, then your soul will have no other opportunity but to go back to Krishna. So you can worship Krishna, you can pray to Krishna, but if you are not in a spontaneous relationship with him, genuine one, then there's no way you'll be going back to him. Because there are many other places to visit in this universe to fulfill your natural inclination. So to return back to Krishna actually is not an easy thing. You basically have to be, in my words, from what I've read, you have to be ultra obsessed, completely madly in love with Krishna. Like completely. Nothing else. You have no taste for anything. Then you're already with him. Then death becomes an entrance to his planet because the soul cannot go anywhere else. So I think in the Leelas that we see, not many people were like that. The ones who were like that, Yashoda, Nanda, the gopis, they're very different to everybody else. Is that okay, Babaji? Yeah, Torasa, yes.
So, in relation to that, Jay and Vijay, who were Vishnu's gatekeepers, they get reincarnated over and over again. They also come as Shishupal and Dasa. And I think in Chaitanya, there's two characters in there.
Yeah, Radharamana.
So they were the actual avatars of Jay and Vijay as well.
Absolutely. So this is a very great lesson that even in the gates of the spiritual world, if you're deviating, then you will fall back into the material world. This shows how karma is so powerful, doesn't it? Any other questions?
Going back to
Arjun.
Going back to Drona. So the last verse of Bhagavad Gita talks about Supreme Arjun. But we're learning that Ekalavya is actually supreme. And earlier, well, not supreme, but superior. And you just said Karan at some point knew more. So Krishna has arranged it that actually Arjun gains the glory and the credit. Is that how it is?
It's a good question. So this was also on the slide, this question. So this verse, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Tatra Partha Dhanutara. Where there is Krishna, the master of mystics, and Arjun, there will be victory, etc., etc. Last Saturday, I gave a class here at the Manor, and I mentioned a particular point. And some devotees approached me saying to me, oh, we haven't seen it in this way. I said a particular point And if you would like to see the class, I'm happy to share it on the WhatsApp group. It was Saturday morning, the day before. I spoke a lot about the Mahabharata because my brain is just Mahabharatized. Even in the Chaitanya Charitamrita class, we're like Mahabharata this, Mahabharata that. The buddies were like, "What you were there, man?" The buddies were like, "What are you doing? And you're reading Mahabharata wherever you are." Even at work, I speak on Mahabharata. So I mentioned in the class last Saturday that in scriptures you can't take every verse as being perfect, because in the scriptures certain people say things. So this particular verse, despite being in the Gita, it was spoken by Sanjay. So what you can say, if you don't mind, I'll just reiterate the question. What you can say is that in the opinion of Sanjay, Arjun was the best archer. That's correct. But we can't assume that that is the absolute answer, even though it's in the Gita. That's a very important point. When you read scripture, you have to be careful to see who's saying what. Is that okay as an answer? Was there any part of your question I didn't answer?
No, that's fine. Just seeing how Karan and Olivia picked.
Yeah. So now you're going to read in the next case study how Yudhishthira says, Yudhishthira himself says, Karna is by far better than Arjun. So that's Sanjay's version and Yudhishthira's version. So many people have many different versions of what they think. Let's provide everybody's versions. Is that okay? Yeah. Go, Matish.
Yeah, sorry, another weapons question.
Sure.
Ekalavya, science he used, was it based upon hearing? If it was, wasn't it the early Raghavans who had a similar science to be able to shoot by hearing?
Yeah, so the ability to be able to use the bow and arrow just by hearing. And you said who else?
Was it the early Raghavans?
Yes, Lord Ram had that. His father had that.
Did he give it up?
The art.
For some reason, I'm reading some, not in Shastra, but
So basically, people have got in trouble firing aimlessly. So yeah, it is risky. It's a risky thing. You know, many sages fired aimlessly. Sorry, many kshatriyas fired aimlessly, and they got in trouble. Yeah, absolutely. Not always the best thing. Okay, yes.
Last thing you mentioned about why Krishna gave Arjuna the Gita and everyone else, and we had a discussion about if Arjuna was the most capable one, that's why. In Bhagavad Gita, you mentioned that he's giving the Gita to Arjuna because he's pre-assumed. He's Arjun's friend. And so that just makes it very sweet that he's imparting knowledge because Arjuna is his friend and he is his devotee. But then there's discussion about that maybe Krishna was not siding with Pandavas and actually he was like just doing his own thing. So just I had this question of why did Krishna give only Arjuna when you can see
Yeah. So because Arjuna was always devoted to Krishna, and because he was in a relationship with Krishna, he could make mistakes. That's the beautiful thing. Someone is in a relationship with Krishna, they can make mistakes. He allows them to make mistakes. And when required, he will teach them as well. So in comparison to Bhim, he never made a mistake. Bhim also didn't require to be taught anything. So there's a comparison there. It is not that Arjun was dearer to Krishna than Bhim. That's absolutely not true. When Krishna is speaking to Arjun, he says to him, "You are priyosime, you are very dear to me." And that's absolutely true. But so are many other people dear to Krishna. Shri Radharani was also on the planet, and as you know, no one is more dear to Krishna than Shri Radharani. You know? So like that, Bhishma was also dear to Krishna. So the fact that Krishna says to Arjun, "You are dear to me," that's absolutely true. But it's not that he is just for him. There are many others too. Does that answer your question somehow? Yeah? Okay, good. Yes.
In relation to that,
Yeah.
the Bhagavad Gita was first spoken to Vivasvan, who was the sun god. And that's Vivasvan, if he was the sun god, he would have given that knowledge to Hanuman as well. And Hanuman is also, I guess, Bhima. So in saying that, I would say that Karna could have been deserving of the education from Sudadev, if that was the case as well.
Yeah. So the verse you're quoting, in the purport, Prabhupada quotes from the Mahabharata, and he says, Yoga Nashta Parantapa. The science of handling the Bhagavad Gita became lost during the time of Lord Ram, Treta Yuga. Yeah, so actually the Gita was lost from the earth during the time that you're talking about. Yeah. Okay. Alright, should we move on to the next case study? We haven't got long, okay? Then we're waiting for another week. So let us, tournament. Shall we do the questions in case we don't get time for this one? Is everybody okay with that? Let's just quickly do the question. I don't want to ignore the questions. So I'll try to provide answers as far as I can. Please forgive me for my inability. What is the, so I'm looking at the, I know I should do the ones on thingy first, shouldn't I? On the last week's ones. But I'll just read the questions out. So Gita 18.78, which is the verse you quoted. So how can you say that Krishna was not on their side? Because Dhanam was on their side, that's why Krishna was their side. So Krishna was not on the Pandava side because they were his cousins. So was Ekalavya, so was Duryodhana. They were all related. Krishna was only on the sides of the Pandavas because Dharma was on their side. They were being dharmic. So any further questions on this one? Yeah. So Krishna only sides with Dharma. He has no personal motive to side with anybody. It's a very important point. Samoham sarabhodesho namedvashti sanapriya. I don't like anyone or dislike anyone. I'm just equal to everybody. The one who is in love with me, I'm in love with them. You know, so that's a very beautiful verse. Why did Yudhishthira gamble away his wife? Because Kalipaveshita. Duryodhana would hold the stakes in his mind, and being having possessed Yudhishthira, he would then execute the stakes in Duryodhana's mind, and therefore Draupadi was being asked to gamble. How you said if you touch the Mahabharata you have victory? Do you mean any Mahabharata or the OG one Jat? Someone can help you with this one? Yes.
The original text.
Original text. Thank you so much. Thank you. Original text. Okay. So I'll read that again. How you said if you touch the Mahabharata you have victory? Do you mean any Mahabharata or the original text? Very good. So how you said if you touch the Mahabharata you have victory? Yes. If you touch scriptures, it's very, very powerful. So I have a hobby of collecting old manuscripts. So I have manuscripts that are very, very old, and I just touch them. You touch scriptures, you become very, very powerful. You become very blessed. So just by touching Bhagavad Gita, you become powerful, let alone studying, let alone attend the Mahabharata course. Yes. You will all become very powerful after this course. The mantras we recite, remember, all this stuff is no Sanskrit verses, yeah? I ain't adding anything in. All these verses, they're all adding. This is like a great big puja. Imagine attending a big oven. That's what you guys are all doing. You know, you will not realize, but the amount of merits you're accumulating, both pious and devotion, are incredible by studying and attending this course. After the war, Yudhishthira ruled for a significant time. So how did the degradation of technology take place? Couldn't he mitigate it? In the war, those who were educated and had mastery over various arts and disciplines all perished. So because they perished, many advancements in science and technology also perished. This was the issue. Next one, arrow analogy, one that I gave for the Karmas. Once the arrow leaves the bow, which is the prarabdha, does each outcome of each arrow affect all your subsequent lives or just that lifetime? Just that lifetime. An arrow which has left the bow, the prarabdha, the reaction which is about to fructify, will fructify in this life, not the next life. The ones for the next life are called agami karma, arrows that have not yet been released. In the Rig-veda, verse number 1, finally I have prepared something in advance. In Rig-veda, verse number, sorry, I'm going to stretch my legs a little bit, not so used to sitting like this, you know. Right, in Rig-veda, verse number 1, how did you say that? Sorry, let me read it again. In Rig-veda, verse 1, is it about Agni or Krishna? How is it about Krishna? If you don't mind, can I ask you ask the question? Thank you so much. Okay. So it's a very good point. I try not to spend too long doing this. I could actually spend, I'm not trying to boast it, but I could actually spend 10 hours speaking of this verse. This is this is my favorite verse in the entire scriptures. This is the first ever verse that came from Krishna's flute. When he blew his flute, when creation was made, this is the first verse. Should we want to give a quick sample here, Javadi? Should we try it? To get the microphone? Where's the microphone? Is the microphone there? There was a microphone. Can anyone see the microphone?
Oh, here it is.
There you go. So would you like to hear the first verse of the Greek bed?
I think so.
Is it working?
No.
Yeah, it is. Why don't you take it as well? Again, you can all just close your eyes one moment. You can hear the divine sound, the first hymn of the Greek bed, okay? Hari Om Agni Purohitam Yajnasya Devam Ritvinam Om Ratnadatamam Hari Om. Thank you. So this is the first of the Greek bed. As you heard, there was some accentation that took place, which is indicated by the red markings. These red markings actually explain whether the accent should be anudat, udat, or swarit, whether it should be low, medium, or high. The difference of the Big Bed and the Mahabharata or the Gita is that this is actually a different form of Sanskrit. This Sanskrit is called Vedic Sanskrit. It's not a Sanskrit which is spoken. The four Vedas are written in this particular type of Sanskrit. The Sanskrit in the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad and the Gita is called Lokik Sanskrit, which is conversational. So in this Sanskrit, every single syllable is very divine. The words don't mean the way you read them. These accents can provide a complete opposite meaning depending on the accentations. So you've got oh, sorry, I forgot. Sorry, let me just, basically, I forgot to write it in English. So sorry. So the first word is Agni. Okay? So this will refer to the fire. The problem is, in the Vedas it says that Richa Samani Chandamsi Puranam Yadushasaha Uchishthaj Jagire Sarve Divideva Yudhishitaha. That the Vedas and the Puranas were spoken before the gods. So now the question is, how can this be for Agni if this was spoken before Agni was born? Yeah. Make sense? Right? So this means it's not Agni. The other question is, who is this verse for? We read on. Ire. Okay? Ire. This means I worship. Ire. Purohitam. Purohit means priest. Yes? Purohitam. So Purohitam. Hitam means one who benefits. Puro, one who provides spiritual benefits. Purohitam. Okay? So I worship Agni, who is a Purohit, a priest, who benefits us. This thing here, Asya. Asya, anyone here done a bit of Sanskrit? Anyone? A little bit? Asya means it's the sixth declension for possessive. Asya, Krishnasya, of Krishna. Aham Krishnasya, I am Krishna, or Iha Jagata Krishnasya, this world is Krishna's. Samsung mobile Krishnasya, the Samsung mobile belongs to Krishna. Okay? Right? So Asya is possessive. Yagyasya, this is Yagyasya, Yagyasya, of Yagya. Devam, the Lord. And Ritvidam basically means priest. Okay? So Lit, Vijam. Okay, let's do the translation now, yeah? I worship Agni, who is a priest, Yagyasya, of Yagya, who is the Supreme Lord, for whom I am officiating. That's how the verse is for Krishna. Is that okay? 10 hours done in 2-3 minutes. Okay? I can speak a lot more on this because it's a very beautiful verse, and the verses after that also provide a lot more insights. But you have to remember that in the Gita, Krishna says that all of the Vedas are to know him. Vedesh Sarve? Aham Eva Vedyo. All the Vedas are only to know Krishna because these are the sounds of Shri Radharani coming from his flute. So this is how we translate the verse. Did that answer your question? Okay. Was that okay for everybody? Yes? Easy way to translate when you know what the words' context are. Is there an overlap with the verses? Is there an overlap with the verses the different worlds have with what we have? i.e. the 300,000 verses of the Deva different to ours? Absolutely. So my wife asked the same question. We mentioned how the Mahabharata is 300,000 verses in the celestial planets, 150 in the Gandharvas, 140 in Pitralok, and 100,000 in Earth. So in the celestial regions, the Devloks, they have more elaboration on the conversations and the stories in the Mahabharata compared to us. This is the difference between them. Oh, yes.
I think what I meant was that, like, we've got the Jihad, for example. So are the 300,000 verses omitting that, and do they have?
So they would have more than that. So remember there was a verse earlier where we said that Shakuni, Duryodhan tried to murder him many, many ways? That we don't know.
Okay.
We only have the poison.
Yeah. So originally, you mentioned last week, the original was 600,000
Yes.
verses. So if the Devas have 300,000 verses, is there 300,000 verses that are just lost somewhere if they're not different to different words?
So definitely not lost.
Yeah.
If you accumulate the whole thing together, then you have the absolute critical edition.
Okay.
Yeah. But what happens is Vyas only reveals things that are digestible by the people of those planets. Remember, the Vedas are universal.
Yeah.
That can be said. Alright? But there's nothing missing from Mahabharata, it's just elaborated in the other planets. Like that. How do we do Tarpan? And when should we do it? Does anybody have a father who maybe passed away? Yes, would you like to come forward? Would you like to come forward? Let's come forward. You come and sit over here. And we'll show you, it's so simple. You come and sit over here. And you want to take your jacket off, are you comfortable? You take your jacket off and come back. This is a very simple pot with a little bit of water. Krishna explains, Deha Devaya Prokta, that when Krishna created our bodies, he allowed our bodies to be formed in such a way that they can be used to worship Krishna. So it says on the hands, my lines are changing. It says on, they're changing every day, by the way. Looking okay. So the fingertips are called Devatirth. So any water offered from the fingertips goes to the celestials, God, etc. Any water from the base of the thumb goes into the heart called Brahmatirth. Any water which falls from the base of the little fingers goes to the Rishis, Rishitirth. Any water which flows from between the thumb and the forefinger goes to the forefathers. So using your hands, you can access the celestials, the Pitras, Lord Brahma himself, the super soul, and the Rishis. So we're going to demonstrate how to do that, okay? You mind me asking what your father's name is? Manohar. Okay. So what we're going to do is first we're going to purify the water by offering it to Lord Krishna, okay? So what I'm going to ask you to do is simply place your hands like this and just a little bit over the pot. This looks so that it drops straight a little bit over this way. And we're going to first offer to Lord Krishna, okay? So you can all join in with me. You can everyone say Krishna, Tarpayami, Govindam, Tarpayami, Madhusudanam, Tarpayami, Rishikesham, Tarpayami, Ramam has become purified. Now we're going to offer the purified water to his father. And his father is going to receive this great benediction. This water transforms into anything and everything that his father requires in his current life, wherever he is. So we're going to basically ask you to put your hands together again like this. This time, when the water lands in the center of your palm, I would like you to tip your hand like this, so the water flows from between here. Okay? Yeah, absolutely. Have you done this before? Maybe at that time, yes. Someone over, yeah? Okay. So you can think of your father now. So you pick up some water and you flick it on your head and you think of your father. Om Apivitraha Pavitro Sarvavastham Kuto Viva Yasmane Pundarikaksham Sa Vyaventra Shuchihi Shri Vishnu Sri Vishnu Sri Vishnu. May your father, wherever he is, be blessed with his holy water. And may you continue to have a relationship with him, access with him, and may through this water he gain all of the wonderful abilities to excel in his devotion and progress in his life. Hare Krishna. Please take a seat. Simple. That one is so simple, then, isn't it? So you can all do the same thing. as we just demonstrated. These things are so nice to do, so simple. Please don't think all this stuff is complicated. It's very, very simple. Okay, so we've answered the questions that were from last week. Now we will go to the silent. I'm currently listening to an excellent Mahabharata podcast. Would you recommend any English books to accompany your materials and course? I will be honest with you, I don't read a lot of English books. So I will try to see. Mataji said there's a book called Yajna Seni, which is a good book.
Yeah, but it's not a scripture.
Oh, it's not a scripture.
No, it's not a scripture.
Okay, I will find something. And let you all know. Is that okay? Okay. What is the absolute truth? The Gita definitely outlines this. There is no truth superior to me. Everything in this earth, universe, rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. So Gita is very nicely defining absolute truth. Please have a look. Where can I find the verse from which refers to Krishna? Verse 1 seems to refer to Agni. This is the verse again, okay? Society has brainwashed people into believing having a boyfriend or girlfriend is okay. This is obviously sinful. How do we avoid this sin? In my own situation, I've never had a girlfriend, and my wife's never had a boyfriend. I've also never had a boyfriend. Sorry. You can ask her, but in my personal situation, I will tell you what happened in my situation. I fell in love with somebody. And when I fell in love with somebody, I never wanted anyone else. And his name was Radharamana Swami. I was 15 years old, and when I met Radharamana Swami, I fell in love with him, and my attention was purely on him. So I had no time for anyone else. Is that okay as an answer? So I think you have to fall in love with somebody. If at a young age you need love, then I did that to keep me as much as I can following this particular culture. I know it's tough, but ultimately, if you fall in love with Krishna at a young age, I think it's very good. Later on, always, fine as well. But you have to fall in love with somebody. And for me, it's been 30 years now, and I'm still in love with Radharamana Swami. And as part of that, after my graduation, I asked him, so what next? He said, I think you should find a female. Yeah, and I'm in love with my wife over there, who doesn't like anchor butter. So yeah, that's my honest advice, that if you can transpose your love into something which is pure, that will carry you forward. That's just the small, if that's okay. That's just my small quick view. If Duryodhana was the purest form of evil, how comes Krishna describes Ashwatthama's crimes as worse than anything Duryodhana ever did? Such a good point. So Ashwatthama was the personification of Lord Shiva's anger. And that anger is actually empowering Kali. It's a complicated question, complicated answer, but there is a resemblance between Lord Shiva, Kali, and Duryodhana, because Lord Shiva has many forms. The Mahabharata explains that Lord Shiva actually empowered and permitted Kali to appear as Duryodhana. So Lord Shiva has an involvement in this, and therefore, as Ashwatthama, he was able to perform a crime worse than Duryodhana because the source was the same. The source was the same. How does one start the process of learning Sanskrit? Is there a course you can recommend? When I spoke to Bhakti Swami many years ago, who was one of my first Diksha Gurus, he said to me that he and we both learned a great amount of Sanskrit by simply reading Bhagavad Gita as it is. And Bhakti Swami said, after reading Bhagavad Gita as it is, I learned Sanskrit. Prabhupada writes the word for word so that we can be familiar with Sanskrit. So this is the first thing that one should do. Read Prabhupada's books, you become so familiar with Sanskrit. The second thing is there are lots of nice courses that are going around. I can recommend some. I still study Sanskrit on Saturday mornings with my teacher. It's a wonderful language to embark on, and I recommend you learn Sanskrit as much as you can because it's really helpful to get insightful meanings. These meanings that I'm giving you are my meanings, and I'm really proud of that. I'm really happy that I can give you my personal ecstasies, my personal meanings. But guess what? It won't be better than your personal ecstasies, than your personal meanings. And what facilitates all of that is some understanding of Sanskrit. Don't need to be experts. Some understanding is good. So I highly recommend Sanskrit. Will you be writing a book on Mahabharata? Absolutely, yes. Haribol! I was thinking that when I retire, I'll find a nice place. And I was thinking that all of you inspired me to definitely, I would like to translate the Mahabharata. I would like to write a commentary with Tatpanya underneath it and provide context. It's something I would like to do. So when I retire, I'm going to do that. Retire soon! Oh, I love my job, you know. But before Krishna, what was the highest level of worship? So Krishna has actually always been worshipped. In the Vedas, you find that Krishna has always been worshipped from the very beginning. So people are fully aware of his personality, and he came in the 28th Dwapara recently. But you'll actually find in the Vedas that he's worshipped very highly, very in huge regards. And I can quote non-stop from the Vedas to describe that. How were people not able to see Karna as someone who may not be a Shudra, considering his skill and birth given chest plate, of course? The thing about Karna was that everyone felt that he was a warrior. The problem was he had bad character. So because of his bad character and conduct, no one felt he was from a noble birth. See, normally from a noble birth means you develop good achar and good vichar, good thinking and good conduct. Karna had neither. So if Karna had changed these things, then he would undoubtedly have been recognized as a Kshatriya. Even Duryodhana was quite surprised sometimes. Karna would overstep his mark, and we're going to read about that. He was the one who instigated the disrobing of Draupadi. Yeah, wasn't Duryodhana's idea. It was Karna's idea. It's quite a terrible thing, actually. I'm going to show you the actual words that he said. First, he said, disrobe the Pandavas. Pandavas took off their top cloths. Then he said, now disrobe Draupadi. And he was the one who said, I mean, the Sanskrit I will show you, he was the one who said, if Draupadi was brought in here naked, doesn't matter. He said that. It wasn't Dusashana or Duryodhana. So he had a problem, you know. And one of the arguments are that he was raised like that, you see. He always had jealousy in his heart. Was Duryodhana's love for Karna pure? We didn't come to it. I'm so sorry, I will sing that line from the Bollywood film next week. Okay. You can guess what it is. Was Duryodhana's love for Karna pure? It was motivated. Karna, Duryodhana says a particular line, which you're going to read if I give it to you. I'll give it to you anyway. I'll give it to you. How does one start verse 7 in Sanskrit? Is the course, yes. Is Mahabharata Tatpanya purely Srimad interpretation, or did other scriptures also influence his comments, like Sugriva becoming Karna in Mahabharata? So what happened was Vyasadeva actually taught Madhva the Mahabharata, and based upon Vyasadeva's version of the Mahabharata, he then wrote the commentary. So the commentary is actually Vyasa's own versions of understanding his own Mahabharata text. That's the advantage of the Mahabharata Tatpanya in there. And in the session 1 material, you see he wrote that. He wrote, Vyasadeva taught me this commentary. You say the seeds were sown. Why? Yes, that's a very good question. So the seeds over here are the fact that while living a very pure lifestyle, these great kings had amassed so much power that now they started to do other things, which slowly became larger and larger in the generations to come. It says in the scriptures, it takes 3 generations to purify sin, great amounts of sin, and 7 generations to completely change your entire varna, which is nowadays called class. In other words, your entire disposition, your entire nature and culture, it takes 7 generations. What was the age gap between Ganga and Shantanu? Millions of years. Because Ganga is ancient. If she made a pass at the first, the gap was huge. The gap was millions of years. She's always young and beautiful. Do the bad qualities of progeny come from the mother of kings? Srimad Bhagavatam shows that daughters get the qualities of fathers and sons from the mothers. Yeah, sure. But there's a mixture of this. And also, it depends on your karma as well. What type of karma consequences you want to go through. So yes, the answer is correct. It's a mixture though, definitely. Why explain being a virgin for marriage in an apologetic way? That is true. The Vedic culture is full of truth. This is objectively the best way, regardless of culture. Yeah, I agree. Okay. It's a good point. Can we please have the recipe we're making here at home? Yes, we will send the recipe. But please ask the administrators first. Okay? I'm joking, guys. I love you guys. I love you. Okay. All right. Please share your Saturday morning class. Absolutely. I will post it tonight. Do you have any tips for studying scriptures? I would say read as much as you can and hear from others who have been reading it for a long time. These two things definitely help. I just had a passion for all this stuff at a very young age, and therefore, every time I learn something new, I realize how I know less. The more you learn, the more you realize you know less. That is the beauty, and that's what keeps me going. So thank you all so much. We are overrun. I apologize to School of Bhakti. So I'll pass it back to you to say a few words to close. But all, I'm so grateful.